Getting chauffeured by a robot isn't always a smooth ride. State transportation records obtained by NBC News show self-driving cars have been involved in 280 crashes across California over the past 5 years, resulting in at least 64 injuries and a dead dog. Cars have been confused by emergency scenes, sometimes plowing into caution tape or blocking fire trucks.
How does this compare to the worst driving student you've ever had?
Oh, this is much worse.
Our car sat parked on a busy street for 20 minutes, causing a traffic jam for blocks.
In this video, Cruise and Waymo have a fatal problem. Meanwhile, Tesla, the Trojan Horse of Trojan Horses, continues to fly under the radar, almost entirely unnoticed. This only ends one way, and I don't think people have quite figured this out yet. In this video, I'm going to spoil the movie. And if you guys would like to support the channel and unlock a load of exclusive content, check the links in the pinned comment. You can subscribe on X, formerly known as Twitter, and also check out Patreon. So grab your popcorn and let's get into it.
A major vote in California this week could expand the presence of driverless cars in San Francisco, but got some new details tonight on the dangers they might pose. NBC Bay Area senior investigative reporter Bigad Shaban explains.
No hands on the wheel, no hands at all.
Okay, I just requested our ride and it's 3 minutes away.
More than 2,000 self-driving cars are on the road in California. Most have a test driver inside who can take over when needed, but hundreds of cars have no one in the front seat as they make deliveries and shuttle passengers. We tried a ride with Cruise. Owned by GM, Cruise is one of the largest driverless car companies in America, along with its competitor, Google's Waymo. Both are now asking California regulators for permission to expand their robotaxi services inside the state's largest testing ground, San Francisco, so passengers can request rides 24 hours a day, right from their phones.
Once you enter your destination, the car does the rest. You can't tell it what routes to take or streets to avoid. So if you're used to being a backseat driver, you might want to find a car with a front seat driver.
Autonomous vehicles can detect closed streets, drive around double-parked cars, and even pull over for emergency vehicles. But getting chauffeured by a robot isn't always a smooth ride. State transportation records obtained by NBC News show self-driving cars have been involved in 280 crashes across California over the past 5 years, resulting in at least 64 injuries and a dead dog.
Now, in fairness, I'm sure human drivers have been involved in significantly more accidents, caused significantly more injuries, and very likely run over and killed significantly more dogs. But perception and reality are two entirely different things. What's more salacious, juicy, and click-worthy than self-driving car involved in accident or runs over Fido? Not a whole lot. Is this fair? No, but it is reality. And this is one of the very unusual situations in which it isn't Tesla taking all the arrows, but companies like Cruise and Waymo, while Tesla's basically Trojan horsing their way to solving this problem, while everyone else is distracted with the drama around Cruise and Waymo. More on that later in this video.
That includes collisions with other vehicles, bicyclists, and city buses.
A self-driving car with no driver.
Some accidents were caused by other people on the road, according to crash reports. How many is unclear from the data. But the cars have been confused by emergency scenes, sometimes plowing into caution tape or blocking fire trucks.
Once again, optically, not a great look, plowing into caution tape, and worse, blocking the path of emergency vehicles. This is no joke. Slowing an ambulance or a fire truck by a second can result in cost lives. And again, to be fair, there are many dumbass humans driving vehicles doing the same things. But it's not newsworthy, is it?
Waymo didn't comment, but Cruise tells us automation has safety benefits.
Our cars don't drive drunk, they don't get distracted.
Prashanthi Raman is one of the leaders at Cruise.
Our vehicles are designed to, when they approach a situation that they aren't sure about, they're designed to come to a safe stop.
But you would acknowledge that even coming to a full stop can create safety issues too.
So traffic blockages are not something that we want to have happen.
Just hours after that interview, it did happen. To us.
Yeah, that's awkward. Now, again, as I've said in the past, and as we'll discuss further in this video, the key difference between what Tesla are doing, a generalized solution, actual intelligence, vision, as in perception, planning, and action, is very different to what Cruise and Waymo are doing, as I've said in the past. A Cruise or a Waymo vehicle encounters a new situation, something that isn't in their high-definition pre-map of the area, and it does one of two things. Deletes a dog, or alternatively, just stops, cries, and asks for daddy to come help.
Our first ride with Cruise went as planned, but we then invited a longtime driving instructor, Eugenia Borges, to join us on a second ride. About 1 minute in, our car was at a green light, but wouldn't budge.
It's a very safe situation for the car to turn, and it's just staying here. I'm not sure why.
The car eventually inched forward, but kept stopping.
We're kind of now riding in between two lanes.
Then, all of a sudden, it hit the gas.
Oh.
Okay, I don't know what it's doing now.
Our car drove straight towards the median and just stopped, picking up almost 2 full lanes.
This is not good.
People are honking at us.
Soon came the looks from other drivers.
How does this compare to the worst driving student you've ever had?
Oh, this is much worse.
Cruise declined to sit down with us again, but in a statement said the car encountered an unexpected construction zone that would have required several lane changes. The better course was for the autonomous vehicle to come to a safe stop rather than proceed.
Now, please don't tell this to the very intelligent investors who genuinely believe that Cruise and Waymo are ahead of Tesla when it comes to solving autonomy, but this is really bad. Why? As I mentioned, this isn't artificial intelligence. It is a glorified party trick. It's the same shit as teaching somebody who can't see to navigate a predetermined map, a certain course that they know. This many steps here, then I've got to turn here, go here, do this, do that. Everything's fine as long as nothing changes. But as soon as there's an obstacle that wasn't there and the course changes in any way whatsoever, it's game fucking over. It's very important to understand because at first glance, you see a Cruise or a Waymo vehicle driving around with no one in the driver's seat. Wow, look, that's incredible. It's a self-driving car. Tesla's not doing that. But you have to get a little bit deeper, not just look at the tip of the iceberg, but try to understand what's happening beneath the surface. And as we see, one of the insights, one of the ways we can see what's happening beneath the surface is when a single thing changes. Oh, there's a construction zone. All right, I don't know what to do here. Time to pull over or just start plowing through construction cones. Tesla, on the other hand, have developed and are developing, and by the way, it's not perfect yet, a generalized solution. It doesn't need you to map the area before in high definition and then use expensive LiDAR to bounce a signal off objects to make sure that everything that was in the HD map is exactly where it was in the HD map. Instead, you can drop a Tesla anywhere, and for the very first time, without any HD mapping, without any guardrails, without anything, the Tesla vehicle will look out into the world, see via 8 cameras, perceive, recognize objects, boundaries, lane lines, can drive there, can't drive there, that's a vehicle and so on, and intelligently navigate after perceiving. It will plan and act based on that. This is a scalable solution. What Cruise and Waymo have developed, unfortunately, is not.
While other drivers cruised right past that closed lane, our car sat parked on a busy street for 20 minutes, causing a traffic jam for blocks.
What's your reaction to it being a driverless car stuck here?
I'm not surprised.
Self-driving cars are already being tested in at least 25 states. But with no federal regulations, America doesn't have a national roadmap for safety guidelines.
Hey there, guys. Just wanted to check in.
Back inside our car, Cruise customer service contacted us to say they detected a problem. Their solution? They sent us a driver to get behind the wheel.
And now, for part 2. We're over on the Balls Deep Journal. America's most tech-forward city has doubts about self-driving cars. Alphabet's Waymo and Government Motors Cruise are struggling to win over San Francisco residents and officials, a major hurdle in their nationwide expansion. Lol at the idea of them expanding nationwide. Good luck with that. San Francisco. This city's inhabitants embraced computers, the internet, and cell phones before the rest of the world caught on. They are not so sure about self-driving cars. Suddenly, orange and white driverless Cruise and Waymo cars seem to be everywhere. Orange and white. Are they talking about the self-driving cars or these things? Or both? Some first responders say they get in the way, and pedestrians fill social media with reports of the car's antics. They have collided with at least 2 pets. An anti-car activist group placed orange traffic cones on the hoods of the vehicles, freezing them in place while creating viral videos of the stunt. San Francisco's reaction is a preview of the challenges Cruise, majority owned by Government Motors, and Waymo, part of Google parent Alphabet, will face as they expand to cities across the US. Both companies have invested billions in driverless cars, hoping they will become massive businesses, and they still need to win hearts and minds. A city of about 800,000 people and about 800 million used syringes, San Francisco has already played host to thousands of self-driving car test miles, and some residents are regular users. This shit's cracking me up. Now the companies want to offer ride-hailing businesses that can compete with Lyft and Uber. If the companies get their wishes, San Francisco will become ground zero for one of the first big urban experiments in transportation using autonomous vehicles. The city now known for its human fecal matter. Tent cities, I think I misread that. Availability of fentanyl has also been a hub for political protest, flower children, and fierce guardians of the city's character. The California Public Utilities Commission, which regulates passenger transportation, is scheduled to vote this month on whether to allow GM's Cruise to expand its presence in San Francisco and allow it and Alphabet's Waymo to charge for rides at all times. Last I recall, these things are only operating at certain periods of time outside of peak hours, e.g. early morning, evening, and so on. The vote has been delayed twice, and the agency will hold a hearing next week to hear responses from the companies to a list of safety concerns. Quote, "We think that autonomous vehicles are amazing and we believe that someday they'll be safer than human drivers," said the Director of Transportation for San Francisco's Transit Authority. Quote, "So far the industry has not demonstrated that. Cruise and Waymo are fighting back. Executives at both companies have begun presenting their pitches to the public and government officials with greater urgency, armed with data they say shows the safety benefits of their vehicles." Cruise chief executive said in an interview that officials would cause more people to be harmed if they slowed the rollout of self-driving cars, citing company data that linked their increased presence to reduce collisions. Cruise has quintupled the number of cars it has on San Francisco roads since the beginning of the year. Most of its almost 400 400 vehicles nationwide are in the tech hub. On the left here, when consumers are asked what is the maximum level of automation you would be comfortable with, they replied, "No automation, 18%. Emergency only, features that are usually inactive but active only in certain events such as a collision, 15%. Driver assist, features that actively help the driver while the driver remains in control, 41%. Partial self-driving, features that relieve the driver of all control for periods of time, 14%. And full self-driving, features that completely relieve the driver of all control for the entire vehicle, 12%. Quote, "Anything new, especially a technology that comes across as borderline magic, is going to have a lot of questions and create a lot of attention. Attention draws controversy." Waymo asked riders to write letters to state officials last month. The company might not be able to continue operating in San Francisco, it said, if the state voted no. Cruise took out full-page ads in several newspapers stating, quote, "Humans are terrible drivers." I mean, this is true. Citing nearly 43,000 crash fatalities from car accidents in the US last year. For now, Cruise is offering paid rides at night in San Francisco. Waymo doesn't have the state's permission to offer paid rides yet, but people can ride in its cars free of charge. Both have waiting lists to get on the apps. Now, before we get any further, I just want to point something out here. While Cruise and Waymo are concerned about their ability to continue operating in San Francisco, very limited geo-fenced pockets, Tesla continues to produce and sell tons of cars. Their fleet globally now in excess of 4 million vehicles that in the future, instantly, with an over-the-air update, bang, can become robo-taxis. Meanwhile, we saw earlier in this article, Cruise had 400 total vehicles, almost all of them in San Francisco. You see, if there are delays in enabling companies like Cruise and Waymo to charge for rides and to operate 24 hours a day in even a tiny little pocket of the United States, they're in big fucking trouble. They have invested billions of dollars getting to this point. Meanwhile, Tesla's business model make extremely compelling electric vehicles that consumers can't wait to get their hands on, sell millions of them, while simultaneously also working on the autonomy problem with a generalized solution that is scalable, that isn't dependent on extremely expensive pre-mapping, LiDAR, basically guardrails and hand-holding. Have the customers buy the vehicles covered in the sensors to collect the data to train the software to get better, collect a ton of data, able to operate in shadow mode, and at some point in the future, when the safety, the efficacy of this autonomous software is superior to human drivers, present said data to regulators and go, "Look, motherfuckers, here are billions of miles of data. Here's what the software was doing in shadow mode versus the human driver. Here's all the accidents we could have prevented, all the collisions we could have prevented. Please approve this software." If there are delays in getting this approval, even when the data shows it's clearly safer than human drivers for Tesla, it's not a big deal. Tesla's business model isn't dependent on this. Cruise and Waymo, however, are entirely dependent on approval and the ability to demonstrate safety. And the problem is, they don't have much data. They're doing some pretty cool party tricks in portions of San Francisco. Tesla has literal, and I do mean literal, orders of magnitude more data, which they'll be able to present to regulators to strengthen their case for approval for their autonomous solution. Meanwhile, Cruise and Waymo are still struggling. And as I mentioned, Tesla has a generalized solution. It's still not perfect, but there are portions. You guys can watch now. Whole Mars posts a lot of video and many others as well, where you can see end-to-end rides being done in San Francisco, in particular, in a Tesla vehicle on FSD Beta without human intervention. If Tesla wanted, and I do mean this, Tesla could literally go and push San Francisco, the city, to go, "Hey guys, here's all the data. Let us operate legally in San Francisco now, all hours of the day with our robotaxis, because we can prove here's the data that our software is already better than human drivers. Tesla could get approval already if they wanted to, I believe. There are more Teslas in San Francisco per capita than anywhere else in the world. They have more data. Their software works best in San Francisco. Yet Tesla hasn't pushed for approval yet. But the point that I'm getting at, Tesla's vehicles are already more capable now, based on all the videos I've seen of FSD beta in San Francisco, than Cruise and Waymo vehicles, without the requirement for Tesla to have pre-mapped in HD, to use expensive sensors like LiDAR. And they're going to keep getting better and safer and more capable. And remember, San Francisco is no joke. It's a complicated, busy city. One of the most difficult places in the United States for an autonomous vehicle to drive. But because Tesla has so much data, again, please refer to some of the videos of FSD beta in San Francisco. They're absolutely killing it. And of course, while Cruise and Waymo are doing all the hard work, attempting to get regulatory approval for autonomous vehicles in San Francisco, they're paving the way for Tesla at some point to come in with their big swinging data lead and go, hi guys, here's the data. As you can see, these are way safer than human drivers. Give us approval, please, thank you. Which Tesla is likely to get. Again, I'm still sticking to this prediction unless new information becomes available. By late 2024, I expect the first fair to legally take place in a Tesla robotaxi somewhere. In other words, Tesla to have approval for an entirely hands-free, driverless vehicle, most likely in San Francisco, legally operating. And it won't be too long after that before Tesla gets approval in many other regions. Again, they have a generalized solution. Cruise and Waymo do not. You can't pick up a Cruise vehicle or a Waymo vehicle and drop it on any road anywhere in the United States and expect it to do anything other than immediately pull over and ask for daddy to come help, or to start mowing people down. Whereas pick up a Tesla with Tesla Vision, it's going to look out into the world with the 8 cameras and go, oh, okay, yep, that's a line, that's a traffic light, that's the curb, I can drive there, I can't drive there, that vehicle's probably turning across my path, better give it a wide berth, better slow down, and so on. There is a very short window of time, I believe, in which Cruise and Waymo will have some success in very small pockets before Tesla, out of absolutely nowhere, relatively speaking, widely deploys their autonomous software, their autonomous vehicles, which are already on roads. Remember, it's just a software update. And then Cruise and Waymo are basically fucked. The group behind the traffic cones, Safe Street Rebel, coordinated the stunt as a week-long protest of Cruise and Waymo's expansion ahead of the state commission vote. Members trolled the streets wearing gloves and facial coverings, searching for cars in areas where they are frequently spotted, such as the streets around Panhandle Park. The cones confused the car sensors, some of which are placed on their roofs, stopping them in place. After the state commission moved back its vote, the activists claimed partial credit for the delay and applauded state officials for applying more scrutiny to the expansion plans. Cruise and Waymo have burned through billions of dollars in their attempt to build on-demand taxi services, which they hope, remember, hope is not a strategy, will eventually, a lot of words here, hope eventually produce greater profits without the need for human drivers. So far, their businesses have produced minimal revenue. GM reported $102 million of sales and $3.3 billion of costs and expenses related to Cruise last year. CEO Mary B.S. Barra said in June the company was at the very early stages of a shift to autonomous vehicles, and executives have said the company is targeting as much as $50 billion in annual revenue by the end of the decade. Waymo has raised more than $5.7 billion in announced funding from Alphabet and outside investors since 2020. Alphabet, which has come under shareholder pressure to reduce spending on Waymo and other speculative ventures, doesn't separately report its financial performance. So, again, just take a break here. You know the whole reusable rockets that SpaceX have nailed, and that has now enabled Starlink to be built upon the extremely low cost of getting things to orbit? Tesla's FSD model is quite similar. They are selling customers vehicles for industry-leading profit margins that are covered in sensors that are capable of driving autonomously, that are collecting data to train the software. We see here Cruise's mounting annual losses, losing billions, literally billions of dollars per year, trying to solve this problem. Meanwhile, Tesla is making billions of dollars per quarter selling vehicles that are solving for the same problem. Failure for Cruise and Waymo to solve autonomy is existential for those entities. However, if Tesla never solved autonomy, and believe me, that is an extremely unlikely scenario, but even if Tesla completely failed to solve autonomy, they're fine. They're still selling incredible vehicles with industry-leading profit margins at incredible scale. And they have an insane lead in terms of data. Tesla doesn't need to solve autonomy to survive. Cruise and Waymo do. And so because of this business model, Tesla's collecting data at a rate orders of magnitude above Cruise and Waymo. They have a generalized solution. I just don't think people are quite understanding how this plays out. Amazon's Zoox has also tested its self-driving technology on the streets of San Francisco and is developing a custom boxy vehicle specially designed for taxi services. The company declined to say when it would begin deploying the cars in the city. Cruise and Waymo executives condemned the Safe Street Rebel activists who put cones on their cars and uploaded the videos to TikTok. Waymo said it was a form of vandalism. The group later removed the videos. Quote, "This is a moving, multi-ton vehicle. It's not a toy," Waymo's co-chief executive said in an interview. The company plans to engage authorities for help when its cars are vandalized, she added. fair's fair. Safe Street Rebels said the group wasn't damaging property with the protest. The activists view the cars as a threat to other ways of getting around the city, such as walking, biking, and public transit, it said. Beyond San Francisco, there are hundreds of self-driving cars in Phoenix, with more being deployed for testing in Los Angeles, Miami, Dallas, Austin, Texas, and Nashville, Tennessee. 3 years ago, there were only test vehicles in a handful of cities. Spoiler alert, that's still only a handful of cities. Cruise applied in March for permission from the California Department of Motor Vehicles to expand statewide and operate its cars at speeds of up to 55 miles an hour. Since then, Cruise has sent emails to officials in at least 14 California cities and counties as small as 12,200 person Newman, informing them of the company's plans to expand them. According to documents filed with the state's Motor Vehicles Department, the company said it would begin with 5 vehicles in each of these new markets, according to one of the emails. 5 vehicles. I mean, just think about how many Teslas are driving around in these cities, and Cruise is going to have 5 vehicles initially. I mean, it's not going to end well. It's really not going to end well. These solutions don't scale. It's extremely expensive, and it's existential if they don't solve this problem. 5 vehicles. Remember, Tesla has millions of vehicles on roads globally already. A Cruise spokesman said it notified the officials as part of its statewide application and ultimately wants to operate everywhere in California, but plans to roll out its vehicles in major cities first. Waymo began offering driverless rides in Los Angeles in February, and this week it announced plans to offer the ride-hailing service in Austin. In May, San Francisco city officials sent a letter to the state expressing concerns about the proposed expansion in the city. They listed incidents in which a Waymo drove into a construction site, nearly rolling into an open trench, and a firefighter needed to break a Cruise's window to stop it from driving onto an active fire scene. Yeah, that's not good. So here's the issue. When these vehicles are actually operating without drivers and shit goes wrong, shit really goes wrong. I've seen a load of horror videos where these things are blocking emergency vehicles, blocking traffic, getting stuck, and obviously a lot of dangerous situations are occurring. This is entirely different to Tesla's current business model, in which a human driver is still required to supervise their vehicles, even though, as I've said, there are many hands-free, point-to-point trips occurring in San Francisco in a Tesla vehicle on FSD Beta where the driver does not need to intervene at all. Effectively, doing the same thing that these Cruise and Waymo vehicles are attempting to do, but if anything goes wrong, there is a human ready to take over at any time to avoid these kind of situations. If there's too many incidents like this, with Cruise and Waymo vehicles blocking traffic, preventing emergency vehicles from getting to where they need to go to save lives, to put out fires and so on, you can understand a lot of public outcry. Meanwhile, Tesla vehicles are essentially operating in stealth mode, doing the same thing, collecting data, but not having these same levels of f***ups because humans are still required to supervise. City officials said the number of reported incidents involving Cruise and Waymo vehicles has tripled in recent months. Tumlin, the transportation director, said officials need more publicly available data from the self-driving car companies to draw conclusions about their safety, and the city is making progress toward that goal. Cruise and Waymo both said their cars haven't caused any traffic fatalities. Now, in fairness, you'd hope not. In a city like San Francisco, because physics, it's going to be pretty difficult for any vehicle to cause a fatality, right? Why? Because of the speeds involved. We're talking stop-start traffic. There might be a few injuries here and there, but it would take a pretty extreme event for there to be a fatality. And I'm glad there haven't been any yet, but you have to understand, how often do fatalities occur in traffic accidents in cities? Very rarely. In the first million miles driven, Waymo said its self-driving vehicles in fully autonomous mode didn't cause any collisions with human drivers. A Cruise spokesman said it just takes one ride to convert a skeptic to a believer. About 90% of people who've taken a ride are willing to ride in one a second time, he said, citing internal data. Now, this may be true, but let's just think about this for a moment. If you're willing to take the first ride, clearly you're relatively comfortable with getting in a vehicle that doesn't have a driver in the first fucking place. The fact that this isn't 100% or 99% seems to suggest to me that this isn't actually a good sign. It sounds good, right? About 90% of people have already taken a ride are willing to take another one. That means 10% aren't. What happened between being willing to take the ride the first time and then 1 in 10 people who've been in the vehicle without a driver going, "F that, I'm not doing that again"? Exactly, something to think about. Data can be construed in a very misleading way. Sebastian Thrun, who previously led the Google self-driving car project that is now known as Waymo, said people would start to see the benefits if the cars were allowed to operate more widely. When he ran the project, all it took was 7 to 8 minutes in the car for people to relax and become more comfortable with the technology, he said. Janie Richardson, a retired deputy city attorney, was crossing the street in the early evening of June with her 2 dogs in the Pacific Heights neighborhood of San Francisco when she said a self-driving Cruise vehicle entered the intersection and hit one of her black labs, Delilah. Damn. A Cruise technician arrived on the scene about 10 minutes later, she said, and handed her a piece of paper titled "Handout for others involved in an incident with Cruise." Among other details, it listed insurance information for the car, according to a copy of the letter reviewed by the Balls Deep Journal. Delilah wasn't injured, but Richardson, who said she previously hadn't given the self-driving cars much thought, now wants them out of San Francisco. The Cruise spokesman declined to comment on the specific case. Kyle Vogt, Cruise CEO, criticised the city for promoting what he called misleading data. Cruise has spoken with city officials more than 50 times over the past year to hear their concerns and has made changes to the service based on the feedback, he said. Waymo's co-CEO pushed back on the idea that residents are opposed to the vehicles, citing the 100,000 plus people who have signed up for the waiting list to access Waymo's taxi service. Quote, I have people pinging, emailing and complaining every day about how long they've been waiting to get into the service. So again, just for the record, there's about 800,000 residents in San Francisco. Just because 100,000 of them want to get on the wait list to check out these self-driving cars doesn't actually mean that there's no opposition from residents. In case you don't know, 800,000 is a much larger number than 100,000. And I'm sure some people are very pro self-driving cars and some people aren't. But again, this could be construed as a little bit misleading. Just because there's plenty of people on the wait list doesn't mean there's plenty of people who would prefer these vehicles aren't in the city. So once again, I'd just like to point out the difference, the contrast between Tesla's strategy and that of Cruise and Waymo. Tesla's vehicles are essentially doing the same shit, except instead of a few hundred of them, there's a few tens of thousands of them operating in San Francisco, give or take. Could be a little bit less. I just pulled that number out of my ass. But the point, there's a lot more Tesla vehicles doing essentially the exact same thing right now. However, because a human is required to supervise and intervene, you don't have the kind of accidents and issues and opposition. And eventually, when Tesla has the data to prove their software is significantly safer than human drivers, regulators will look at that data. Believe it or not, the vast majority of people who regulate care about the facts, the data, not people's feelings. And when Tesla can demonstrate beyond a shadow of doubt that their software is significantly safer than human drivers, it's not going to take that much for them to get approval to operate their vehicles entirely autonomously. Meanwhile, you have extremely intense opposition to companies like Cruise and Waymo, who are trying their best to start rolling out their services in just a single city in the US. Maya Waldman, who works in education, signed up to be an unpaid test rider for Waymo during an earlier stage in San Francisco and has ridden more than 5,000 miles in the cars. Waldman, who said she didn't know much about self-driving cars before the program, now feels safer in them than in traditional ride-hailing services. Among other things, she's not at the mercy of a random assortment of human drivers. Every time I hail a Waymo, it's the same driver, she said. When I get into a Lyft or Uber, which I still do use sometimes, I never know what I'm going to get. Just some closing remarks. For reasons that I find difficult to truly grasp, there are a lot of very intelligent people who seem to be under the impression that companies like Cruise and Waymo are further ahead of Tesla when it comes to solving autonomy. I can all but guarantee these folks have literally no idea, and I mean no idea at all, about how human vision works. They don't understand anything about the visual cortex. Most people don't. This is not an insult. These are just facts. They don't understand how neural nets work. They don't understand how a vision-based system developed by a company called Tesla with cameras attached to a neural net, just like humans, which have two cameras attached to our neural net, can be capable of driving without expensive sensors. In addition, many of these folks go, oh, look, Cruise and Waymo are operating autonomous rides in some places in one tiny city, and some of them are even able to charge at certain times of day for those fares. Therefore, they're ahead of Tesla. Tesla is collecting data, orders of magnitude more data than these companies. In addition, Tesla has developed a generalized solution. You pick up a Tesla, drop it anywhere, it'll figure it out. Whereas a Cruise or Waymo vehicle, as I've said in the past, if it's not in its safe little geofenced area, which has already been mapped in high definition ahead of time and not covered in expensive sensors like LiDAR to bounce a signal and go, okay, that tree's still where it was last time when we mapped this in HD, that gutter's still there, those traffic lights are still there. If you drop a Cruise or Waymo vehicle out of its little safe sandbox, it's a death machine. Whereas a Tesla is a very different story, meaning that over time, as Tesla's software gets more capable, they'll be able to roll this out region after region after region, almost instantaneously. Cruise and Waymo are both absolute dead ends. Many experts just don't seem to get this. What Cruise and Waymo are doing is like training a bird to peck out a word on a keyboard. To the untrained eye, the unsophisticated mind, it might look like the bird understands language. Wow, I can't wait to have a conversation with this extremely intelligent bird. But a bird pecking out a word on a keyboard, after being trained to do so, is just a glorified party trick. You're not going to be having a deep conversation with that bird. It's not going to be the next Shakespeare. But at this point in time, many folks, when they see a Cruise or Waymo vehicle, are seeing a bird peck out a single word on a keyboard and thinking that Cruise and Waymo have just taught a bird the English language. Meanwhile, you have Tesla vehicles over here, thousands of hours of videos of their vehicles, essentially writing masterpieces, although at this point in time riddled with typos and poor English and grammar, but getting there. Because there's an occasional typo and a lot less visibility, people are not recognizing what Tesla is doing. There is nothing intelligent about what a Cruise or Waymo vehicle does. They're just party tricks. To the untrained eye, they might look sophisticated, but they're anything but. Meanwhile, Tesla has built genuinely intelligent software capable of perceiving, planning, and acting in the real world. It doesn't need hand-holding or guardrails. Doesn't need the HD maps. Doesn't need the LiDAR. And I generally don't think this is going to become evident to people until Tesla actually does begin to widely deploy their robotaxis. Region after region, they'll get approval in different locations in quick succession. Only then will people start to realize, oh, wait a minute. Cruise and Waymo had a few hundred vehicles operating in 1 or 2 cities in the US last month. Now Tesla has tens of thousands operating in a bunch of different regions a few months later. Wow, now Tesla has hundreds of thousands of vehicles, now millions just in the US alone. How did that happen so fast? I thought Cruise and Waymo were ahead of Tesla when it came to solving autonomy. I don't understand. How is it possible that Tesla now has robotaxis f***ing everywhere and Cruise and Waymo are still confined to extremely tiny pockets of a couple of cities just in the United States? As I've said in the past, I think this is just going to be one of those situations where people are literally going to need to be turkey slapped in the fucking face with the facts before they realise what's around the corner. Don't be one of them. Athletic Greens AG1 has given me a massive, meaningful boost in energy, allowing me to do a lot more every day, including using my brain more and using my body more. I highly recommend you guys and girls check it out. Athletic Greens AG1 is an excellent way to fill in nutritional gaps. It's got 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, and whole food source nutrients, plus prebiotics and probiotics and digestive enzymes and adaptogens to help you deal with stress. Plus, if you click the link in the pinned comment or head to drinkag1.com/SMR, you can get yourself a 1-year free supply of vitamin D3 and K2. But don't take my word for it. Here's what some of you guys and girls have to say. AG1 has changed my life. I was, as you described, treating myself like a circus, ate like trash, rarely exercised, used alcohol as a stress crutch, cannabis also. AG1 is what gave me the kick in the ass, got me back to the gym, motivated me to do more for myself, family, my business, etc. Keep doing what you do. Now, I know there's some skeptics, the same kind of people who think Elon Musk is a fraud, reading this going, what do you thought? There's no way that's possible, bro. It must be a placebo effect. Believe it or not, this is a recurring theme. If you give your body everything it needs to feel and perform its best, including having a lot more energy, you'll need ways to use that energy. For me personally, that includes more exercise, moving my body more social activity, and more cognitively demanding tasks, including producing a ton of exclusive content over on Twitter and on Patreon, plus my daily YouTube uploads. The proof's in the pudding. On to another testimonial from a viewer of this channel. SMR, you asked me to provide feedback on AG1. Here it is. It has helped with mental acuity, stamina, and intestinal waste management. Can't read between the lines. Certainly helps with regularity and digestion. That's what the digestive enzymes are for. It has also dramatically reduced my cravings for sugar. You guys need to stop eating sugar. It's fucking poison. I'm 50, 5'9", and overweight, aka a fat motherfucker. I think that's a technical term for overweight, isn't it? Is it fat motherfucker or obese? I can't remember. I average 100 hours a week in the West Texas oil fields as a safety supervisor. Jesus Christ, dude. No wonder you're struggling to keep your weight under control. 100 hours a week. Brutal. It has helped me lose weight. It is not an appetite suppressant. It can help fat people suppress cravings, and motivation to be healthier is critical for changing your diet. Love you, brother. Again, this is a great point and something people really don't seem to grasp. If you have more energy, everything becomes easier. It's like turning on easy mode for life. A few years ago, before I was taking AG1, my health was trash. I was struggling to get through the day, had afternoon fatigue. The last thing I wanted to do was either use my brain or move my body. Didn't have the energy. Now, my biggest struggle every day is figuring out ways to use that energy. I'm exercising way more, doing a lot more with my friends and family, and of course, my work output has increased substantially. And you can fact check me. Check out the average length of my videos I was posting to YouTube 3 years ago. Need I say more? And one final testimonial. Love this one. Okay, here's the deal for me with this AG1 shit. I'm 41 years old and not the type to eat, drink, smoke, or sleep healthy, so I was skeptical. That being said, here's what I experienced. Day 1, meh. Day 2, afternoon fatigue was about 45 minutes late. Day 3, 0 afternoon fatigue. Day 4, 0 afternoon fatigue plus extra energy. Day 5, again, 0 afternoon fatigue plus energy. Wondering, what the fuck, really? See, this is the thing, right? The results for many people are just almost too good to be true. This is the same experience I had. My afternoon fatigue just vanished out of nowhere. I'm like, wait, what the fuck? Why am I not tired in the afternoons anymore? Surely, it's not that AG1, is it? Turns out it was. Day 6 and 7, same thing. Day 8, same thing. Plus, I had the want to get things done around the house that I normally would slack off and not get done. Again, the point, extra energy, you'll need to use it, you'll find ways to use it. Day 9, 10, and 11, and today is day 12. I fucking love it. So however you managed to get me to buy it, I'm so glad you did. Thank you so much, SMR. It really changed me so far. Guys, this shit really works. Just try it. By the way, This is the reason I continue to relentlessly promote AG1. A lot of people get real fucking mad in the comments. Oh my God, snake oil salmon's sold out. Oh my God, he's a scammer. This is fraud. But constantly, I'm pretty sure everyone making these comments is also currently short Tesla stock. I'm not particularly concerned about people having a negative perception, those folks suffering from small brain syndrome, still living in my bum's basement syndrome, etc., writing mean comments, claiming AG1's a scam or it doesn't work. I mean, bro, when I get feedback like this is what keeps me going. And remember, there is a 90-day money-back guarantee. There's nothing to lose here. Just try this stuff for a month, and if you don't get these results, get your money back. See, it's a literal no-brainer. It's an IQ test at this point in time. Testimonial after testimonial after testimonial like this. Get your money back if it doesn't work. Just try it for a month, and if it doesn't work, get your money back. Today's the day. It's finally time. Be like this guy who was a massive skeptic, but finally, after 1,000 promotions in a row, caved in, tried AG1, and has results like this. Head to drinkag1.com/SMR or click the link at the pinned comment, and please, let me know how you're feeling in a few weeks' time. Now, if you'll excuse me, time to put my extra energy to good use. I'll be recording some more exclusive content for Patreon and my Twitter subscribers. So click the links to the pinned comment. See you over on Twitter and or Patreon. And don't forget to grab your AG1. Love ya.